But targeting tariffs, U.S. allies criticizing the Trump administration over its latest round of tariffs ahead of the G7 summit later this week in Quebec, Canada. Farmers are among the hardest hit because of the tariffs so far. Connell McShane is in Ogden, Iowa, with the very latest details. Hey, Connell.
Hey there, Dagan. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. We wanted to try to make this story come to life as much as we can. You're talking about the trade talks over the weekend. So we come out to this soybean farm in a beautiful part of Iowa. And I was just going to get down here and show you the rows of soybeans that are being grown here. And the idea when you think about trade with China, look at these rows. They won't be ready for harvest until September. Is why they're so low to the ground. But 1 out of every 3 rows of soybeans that we're looking at end up going from the United States to China eventually. The business numbers-wise works out to about $12 billion a year. So when we talk about trade tensions in the United States, they're felt out here in Iowa. I want to introduce you to Ron Heck, who's out here with us, a farmer in Iowa, is also on the President's Advisory Council for Agriculture. Ron, thanks so much, first of all, for having us out to your farm. It's a beautiful place.
Thank you. It's a great place to be this morning.
Well, we were in Beijing there about a month ago or so, and at the time they were telling us that some of the orders for later in the year had actually stopped for soybeans coming from the United States. But how has your business been impacted by all this trade talk, trade tensions?
Yeah, well, actually, the price of soybeans has gone up since the talks started. Buyers around the rest of the world are stepping up and buying more soybeans than they were. So far, we've had a price increase.
How does the business work? In other words, this time of year, they're not normally the Chinese buying from the United States, right? Comes later in the year?
Right. China is a seasonal buyer. They buy from the United States about 6 months a year during our harvest time, and then they buy about 6 months a year from South America.
From Brazil and Argentina and what have you. So as a final point, what's your big worry in all of this? Could they shift some of that buying to the Brazilians or the Argentinians? And how do you see the whole thing playing out?
Absolutely. So far, so good. Everything's been fine. But if they would shift their purchases during their normal purchasing time from the U.S., which is starting in September, that could be a problem for us, and that's when we might feel the price impact.
All right, so you'll watch these trade talks like the rest of us. We'll be talking to Ron and some of the folks out here digging throughout the day, but that's the idea. They're watching it like all of us, but watching it obviously a little bit more intently because this is their livelihood, $12 billion a year business.
Connell, do you mind if I'm curious to ask Ron something? Can you is he making any changes in the way he's managing his farm at all? Has he made any? Is he changing?
Well, you know that's.
You might already know that.
It's interesting. We've talked a little bit about that off camera, but Dagan was asking if, and just a quick answer, Ron, if you're making any changes in the way you're managing your farm because of this. I know it's tough to anticipate what's next.
No, I'm not really making any changes, but I'm being more watchful of what's going on in the marketing. But no changes are called for yet. Actually, nothing has happened so far, and there is a chance that as a result of these negotiations, it will actually be helpful for U.S. and Chinese soybean trade. So it's hard to know which way to jump right now. And
that's kind of a final point, Dagan, is that the Chinese already charge a tax, right? There's a 16% tariff on soybeans coming out of the United States into China now. Their threat is to make it 25, but people like Ron are hoping, obviously, maybe that number at 16 goes lower. So that's why they're so uncertain. They may come out on top by the time this is all done. But right now, they just don't know.
I said when you were talking, you do such incredible reporting. So I'll say that to your face, McShane. Connell McShane for us in Iowa.